God, it tried to look like a blouse and shirt combo, but it was really a one-piece zip-up dress that screamed, I've given up. It zipped up the back like a coverall for orphans.
She was some hoot stuff in that Woolworth uniform. I remember it. Permission to treat the witness as hostile, my lord.
Granted. Answer the question, Corey.
Fine, it's Corey Smith. And Mr. Smith, you claim you were home by 9 p.m. on 4 January and not at Trevor's playing Assassin's Creed, whatever the hell it is. I must say, I usually run Hout and Cold on Grindcore, but that album is really good.
I'm done with Hot Pockets. No. I want a Hoot Pocket. Truffles, brie, and milk-fed veal, caviar, and it burns your tongue in a French minute.
Personally, I'd be very clear with my realtor. Look, I want to see all the converted water towers in the neighborhood before making a final decision. No silos or lighthouses. What do you think? I'm a weirdo or something? I want to see the house properties.
This is the Snaggletoon Extreme Metal Podcast.
Remember when season 4 seemed like an insurmountable dream? Now we're 15 episodes in. Look at that.
And
it was very surmountable.
Yeah, it was like kind of like Mount Everest, though. I'm not going to kid you guys this week.
Yeah, it was kind of.
Yeah, we have
Yeah, I just hope you all can appreciate how hard we work to get paid by our other jobs to do this show. So we work very hard to keep from working, basically. So I hope you can appreciate that.
Well, we just work on other things.
But see, this is a soft skill that you learn in college that no one ever talks about, and I do. It's not about the maths or, the languages or whatever else you learn in college. What you learn in college, what I learned, was how to look like I'm paying attention to you, but I'm actually doing homework for another class that starts in half an hour. And that is a very valuable skill in the world of business, because very soon you're in a meeting where you're trying to pretend like you're paying attention, but actually you're doing work because these checks have to get cut today. I mean, I don't know why no one touts that as a part of academia.
That should be
faking.
Well, it's some kind of multitasking.
Yeah, it's a needed skill that you will tap into again and again, even long after you've forgotten all of your calculus formulas or whatever. So
yeah, where was that in home economics? I don't even think they teach home economics anymore. When we were in school,
they make it into a formal class. All right, Mark, I want you to pretend like you're hanging on my every word, but I want you to also be doing this crossword puzzle at the same time. It can be taught. So anyway, let's call this first bit Hout and Bothered.
You ever think about how one little word can make something sound way fancier than it actually is? Like there used to be this hot dog place called the Haute Dog, spelled Haute, like the French word for fancy or high class, because nothing says elegance like a sausage in a bun and a gold leaf with expensive mustard.
I've been obsessed with Haute this week. I realized, screw just naming a hot dog joint. We need to start using Haute in everyday conversation. This is more fun than a Tickle Me Elmo convention. Picture this. Brenda's an emotional powder keg today, but that dress is fabulous. I'd say she's a Haute mess.
I'm done with Hot Pockets. No. I want a Haute Pocket. Truffles, brie, and milk-fed veal, caviar, and it burns your tongue in a French minute.
And why press someone's hot buttons when you can press their Haute button? Instead of starting a fight, you engage in a sparkle cloud and strut away to Lady Gaga land.
They'll never know what hit him.
Okay, we've all heard the Pentagram song, Living in a Ram's Head. It's a classic, and somehow that made me think of this bit.
I've often wondered about the logic behind foregoing a traditional house or apartment in favor of converting an alternative living space. Maybe it's boredom. Maybe it's a Zillow filter that says, must be partially haunted.
Maybe it's house flippers who lost a bet. Loser has to turn a defunct sewage plant into a boho loft with artisanal tiling.
Perhaps it's from reading the nursery rhyme about the old lady living in the shoe too many times as a child. That sparked an alternative housing ambitions. Because nothing screams healthy home environment like cramming a bunch of toddlers into oversized footwear.
Like, check this one out. A 14,000 square foot water tower in Warwickshire, UK. The concrete walls are over 1 meter thick, if that's important to you. Spiral staircases, 6 bedrooms, modern decor, and for that ultra trendy post-industrial anxiety vibe, they left the fourth floor, a 3,200 square foot tank room, completely unfinished. This way you can pick out the backsplash of your choice and pretend you're an arch-villain hiding in plain sight. Naughty, naughty, Mr. Bond. Personally, I'd be very clear with my realtor. Look, I want to see all the converted water towers in the neighborhood before making a final decision. No silos or lighthouses. What do you think? I'm a weirdo or something? I want to see the house properties.
Now, if you're more the legal drama type, there's a converted magistrate's courthouse in Hertfordshire, a cozy two-bedroom mansion with two studies, hardwood floors, cast iron radiators, and a fully restored courtroom. Family game night just got real. Bring your own gavel and powdered wig.
That's right. Young man, state your full name for the record. Oh, Dad, again? Permission to treat the witness as hostile, my lord?
Granted. Answer the question, Corey.
Fine, it's Corey Smith. And Mr. Smith, you claim you were home by 9 p.m. on 4 January and not at Trevor's playing Assassin's Creed, whatever the hell it is. Dad, young man, you are this close to contempt of court.
Also, they kept the jail cells in the basement intact.
No, they redid the jail cells. Like they polished the stone. It's got that kind of, the Canton thing. I mean, you straight up have a jail cell in your basement. Yeah.
So if you're into restorative parenting or running your own boutique, scared straight B&B, you're covered.
Yep.
Or if you're into the really weird sexual
I have
fantasy.
to say, I think it's getting hot in here. Now I kind of get it in the UK and Europe because the housing is so tight. It's high demand. 80% of the buildings are older than our entire country. But Texas, there's nothing but land for days. And still, someone says, you know where I want to live? The converted Menard County jailhouse. Complete with watchtower vibes and zero insulation. But hey, it's a steal at 225K. If you've been dying to recreate your Yosemite Sam childhood fantasies, just add a fake mustache and drop phrases like, take that, you varmint.
And finally, the crown jewel of unnecessary conversions, the airplane home in rural Oregon. Some ex-pilot had a 727 flown in, trucked out, and dumped in the woods like Bigfoot's Uber. And from the photos, he's got the thing propped up on a stack of old pallets like he was out of cinder blocks and thought, yeah, animal crackers will hold.
That sounds very stable. It's a Boeing bachelor pad. All of the inconveniences of a real airplane. Tiny bathrooms, no elbow room, a galley kitchen designed for heating up a single meatball. But hey, if your lifelong dream is to have a crock pot in a cockpit, you're cleared for takeoff. Some like it hot and some sweat when the hot is on.
In Thailand, there's a real Buddhist temple. Wat Pa Maha Chedi Cow,
That's a mouthful.
constructed from 1 million glass beer bottles. You heard me right. The monks built a temple out of discarded suds containers, which is either the ultimate act of spiritual transformation, proof that even monks will agree that beer is the answer, even if it doesn't matter what the question is. The walls are made of green and brown beer bottles, creating these beautiful, intricate mosaics, and they even use the bottle caps for decorative detail. Nothing wasted. No PBR left behind. And the best part? Because it's glass, the light filters through in the soft, heavenly glow. It's like bathing in the aura of stained glass of Bud Light and anointed with Lagunitas. It's like living inside a liquor store, but with surprisingly good feng shui.
Now, the glass isn't strong enough to support the whole structure because, physics. So there's a concrete core inside, which proves the old saying people who live in glass houses have a built in day drinking temple.
They wanted to highlight the wasteful nature of consumption and the beauty that can rise from rubbish. It's sudsy chic, which frankly is way deeper than what I'm doing when I glue wine corks into makeshift rivets and coasters and call it rich kitchen decor, pretending it's rustic vineyard energy when it's really just about Pinot hoarder panic decor. All right, would you like to introduce our feature interview for this week?
I would be delighted. Our feature interview this week is with guitarist Jim Knights of the UK-based black death metal band, the Leviathan. We have a fascinating discussion with Jim about what inspired the band to reconvene after a hiatus of 8 years. We talk about Jim's passion for being a guitar instructor, and we even find out which classic rock song he's making a black metal cover of. So stay tuned for that. In the meantime, this is Grove of the Wood Witch, and I wrote Grover. Okay, let's talk about Patreon. The site is patreon.com/SnaggletoothPodcast. And for $6.66 a month, you get a souped-up good humor truck with a Jesus on the dash full of Mark and Stace.
Mark did a ton of book reviews. Maybe I'll do how I make my incredible smooth at-home smoothies. So save you money on those juice bars and Java juice and all that stuff. It's really easy. Takes only a few minutes.
That's actually a really good idea.
Yeah.
It's been book review
Yeah.
lately. So, and I'm working on the Mike Campbell book right now, Heartbreaker, which is great. And that review will be up probably in the next couple of weeks because I'm reading every chance I get a few minutes. So
We also have classic vinyl reviews up there, things we don't do on the show. Lots of good fun. I show you how to even make hanging baskets at one point.
in
So
hot pants. Yeah.
remember, when you support the show, you also help support the underground music community that we support.
Absolutely. Okay. Wait, something felt like a cold spot because I think it's time. Oh. Hit it.
And now it's time for Obnoxious Trivia!
All right. I resisted all temptation to look at these throughout the week. So lay it on me. Obnoxious trivia. Question number 1.
In the highly publicized trial of Joan of Arc in Normandy in 1431, she was found guilty of heresy. She renounced her claims and was sentenced to life in prison. However, she was caught doing what, which caused her sentence to be changed to execution by burning at the stake? Was it A, claiming to talk to divine guiding voices, B, drinking wine and dancing naked in the woods, C, writing a letter with battle plans to King Charles VII, or D, wearing men's clothing?
I'm going to say A, claiming to talk to guiding voices.
Well, she did, but she renounced all claim to that, and that's what got her the sentence for life. But she actually kept wearing men's clothing. She
Really?
could not stop wearing men's clothing, and they're like, "That's it,
Huh.
gasoline her up," or I don't know if they had gasoline back then, whatever they used.
Are those penny loafers? Get the torches.
Yeah, exactly. Isn't that hysterical?
Wow.
Other things she did. She couldn't not hold on to that.
Okay, number 2.
Benjamin Franklin was quite a hit in France after going there on a diplomatic mission. You might say he was Halt.
Out.
What about him gained such French fans? A, his demonstrations with electricity, kite, key, and lightning. B, his natural hair, plain suits, fur hats, and walking stick. C, his ideas on how to start a fire department carrying water in leather pouches. Or D, his performances with the glass harmonica, which are bowls concentrically arranged and stroked with fingers to produce singing glass tones.
I say C, the fire department one.
Well, while he did, that was an idea of his. That wasn't what got popular with the French. The French were excited about his natural hair because he didn't wear the wigs, his plain suits. It was the opposite of Hoot. He was plain, and they were so turned on by it.
They're tired of Hoot. Hoot is 5 minutes ago. We want plain.
Women would wear wigs that looked like his fur hats. They
That's very
had
interesting.
like image of him everywhere.
See, I thought I knew everything about Ben Franklin. See, I learned something today. Yeah.
It's his plainness.
And I'm 0 for 2, so let's.
This guy, he doesn't even care.
Great.
All right, moving on.
Okay, 0 for 2. Let's go.
In Hitchcock's thriller Psycho, what was an on-screen first? A, first on-screen toilet flush. B, first time a single woman was shown in a bra. C, first time a sandwich and milk were consumed on screen, or D, first time a decomposed corpse was portrayed on screen.
I think it's A, first on-screen flush.
You are correct.
I think I saw that in a
It
doc.
wasn't so much the murder that
in a
people were
Hitchcock
upset about
documentary.
it. People were so floored they flushed a toilet on screen.
I could see that.
Being in the shower,
I could see that.
looking at women through the wall.
Yeah. All right, we can stop now. I actually got one right. Yeah. Oh, let's finish now.
One. A popular brand of fake blood is known as Ben Nye. No relation to Bill Nye, I don't think.
Okay.
Made from corn syrup and food coloring, was best loved for what reason? A, it's mint flavored so it tastes good. B, it flows like real blood in black and white films. C, it's not as sticky as ketchup. D, it's more realistic than CGI blood.
I'm gonna say A, it's mint flavored so it tasted good.
Again,
Wow.
a lot of actors
Only
didn't like
A's.
the taste of a lot of the other
blood.
blood, so they would really like this one because it's mint flavored. But fun fact, guess what was used in Psycho?
What?
Chocolate syrup, because
One was black and
the
white.
color didn't matter and it actually flows more like real blood. So in that shower scene, she's doused in chocolate.
They wag their heads and they cluck their tongues and they suggest oh so very delicately. Gotta love Psycho. All right, well, this has been Obnoxious Trivia. Rather merry. Oh, I think you took it easy on me on the last two. All right, it's time for our Snaggletoon. And I thought, what better to commemorate at this point than remembering Stace's first food service job? We'll call this the Woolworth Less Restaurant.
Woolworths was the type of store you went in for a bag of aquarium rocks or maybe a lampshade with or without a picture of John Wayne on it. Yeah, I started slinging hash in the original 5 and dime like some Depression-era sitcom character. The liver and onions platter? $2.99. Honestly, you're better off saving your last $3 on a tire pressure gauge or crazy glue rather than opting for the halitosis platter.
And the roast turkey dinner, despite the many guest queries for $4.99, it was not carved from a majestic bird. Oh no. Just 2 thick slabs of lunch meat, nuked over a scoop of box stuffing, and call it Thanksgiving. Throw on some mashed potatoes and a side of limp green beans floating in a vat of hot water. Boom, fine dining. It was all put together by the position nicknamed the Sandwich Wench, Woolworth style.
Now the desserts were all pre-made, except for this one grouchy prep cook. This guy looked like he hadn't smiled since his victory over the Viet Cong, but damn if he didn't make his best shoe fly pie. It wasn't even on the menu, just scrawled on a greasy insert like a hostage note. Shoe fly pie, $1.25. Ask if we have it. You were never sure if the pie or the cook was the real mystery.
And vegetables, this was not the era of the vegan. Every vegetable he cooked had some bacon pieces mixed in. Spinach, bacon. Corn, bacon. Applesauce, yeah, probably bacon. We had the classics too. Fried shrimp baskets, patty melts on rye, grilled ham and cheese so thick they could double as an air filter.
Turkey clubs with 3 slices of toasted bread secured with toothpicks. Lettuce, tomato, mayonnaise, and bacon, and a diagonal cut. There was even a soda jerk fountain with real milkshakes and the occasional broken cherry dispenser that would just fire syrup like a squirt gun. And the uniform? Oh, God, it tried to look like a blouse and shirt combo, but it was really a one-piece zip-up dress that screamed, "I've given up." It zipped up the back like a coverall for orphans.
She was some hot stuff in that Woolworths uniform. I remember it.
But I loved it. It was my first kitchen. I learned timing, patience, sarcasm, eye rolls, and how to avoid the eye of a man violently whisking eggs while cursing.
All right, I can't take any more. This is the Leviathan with the wolf amongst the horsemen. Let's talk about Coffee AM.
Oh, I just gotta. Oh yeah, that was done. All right. So our sponsor this week is Coffee AM. They are out of Georgia. Oh my gosh, I can smell this coming through the bag. Ugh. This is our favorite kind of coffee every time we're out, and we regret it. I don't care if I buy Dunkin' Donuts coffee. It's not as good as Coffee AM. We are into their flavors, but they certainly have unflavored. They even have like that fancy Hawaiian Kona coffee. In fact, they have tea. I bought my daughter a wonderful around the world tea box set. But we're coffee people here. We're the movers and the shakers. This is a Costa Rica reserve. We get it in the drip grind. You can also get it whole bean or French press. They give you plenty of options here. A lot of things are available decaf. So if you're into, brewing coffee and then just pouring it down the drain, that would be for you.
Yes.
This is also a King Cape coffee. So good way to get your sweets without actually eating them.
King cake. Oh, wow.
Yeah, it smells divine.
It sure does.
They got pages of flavors. They come in these sturdy foil-lined bags, which are great. Although we're so crazy about the coffee, when they open them, they get dumped into special containers to keep them fresh. So if you use our link, you too can get coffee FedEx to your door, and they are a rewards program. So the more you buy, the more points you accumulate, and you can take points off future orders.
So if I remember to put the link below, click it, and you'll save on your first order. And now it's time for Bombastic Plastic.
Bombastic.
This week, we're going to go over a classic Project Failing Flesh's debut, A Beautiful Sickness, from 2003. Now, I was not originally going to feature this album on Bombastic, but I kind of did a search through YouTube, and I was kind of appalled at how little there is online about this album. It's hard to believe it's been over 20 years since this forward-thinking little thrash nugget hit our collective mailboxes. But then again, the early noughties were an exciting time for avant-garde metal. Maudlin of the Well, Today is the Day, Sleepy Time Gorilla Museum, and even Psy and Phantomas were all finding new ways to take the intensity of extreme metal and turn it on its side, add unusual textures and instruments, and just be weird in as many ways as possible.
Project Failing Flesh was actually born in Virginia, the initial songwriting the result of two brothers, Tim and Kevin 131 Guitarist. Incidentally, Kevin is quite the engineer, having produced albums for Raven, Deceased, and The Hands of Halsavander, among others. At this point, he works out of Assembly Line Studios in Austin and boasts clients with names like Shinedown and Paul McCartney. At any rate, these two somehow came together to work with one Eric Forrest, best known for taking over bass and vocal duties for Voivod from 1994 to 2001. Even a band like Voivod wasn't immune from the anti-80s weirdness of the late 1990s, but the albums that Eric made with them, 1995's Negatron and 1997's Photos, as well as the classic live record, the massive 2000 relief, Voivod Lives, steered them away from somewhat airy prog metal into a sort of dissident heavy groove style that would prove an important chapter in the band's evolution. His collaboration with the Guitarist brothers would prove fruitful from the very beginning.
The Project Failing Flesh debut, A Beautiful Sickness, was released as an independent CDR in 2003 and picked up a few months later by the Dutch label Carmageddon Media with a K, which is either the dumbest or the coolest moniker for a label of all time. And it consists of 10 songs that buck the trend of the day by keeping things short and simple. All of them are between 3 to 5 minutes, and you have to remember these were the reigning years of the CD era with hour-plus long albums from Opeth and Mars Volta and bands like that. It was all the rage. It's packed with exciting changes and unusual textures that would prove for a thrilling listen that never stops away from its metal roots. From track one, the production on A Beautiful Sickness is warm and round yet caustic. Huge drum sound. The guitar tones on the album are vicious and beefy with a clear connection to classic thrash. And these guys were magicians at transitions. I like that. Magicians at transitions. Yeah. The title track moves from a pounding overkill adjacent double bass tempo to full-on blast beats against what sounds like a Hammond B3, a combination that shouldn't sound glorious, but it does. Eric's guttural snarls are all over the album with very little in the way of clean vocals, save for a spoken bit here and there.
Let's play a clip. This is A Beautiful Sickness. Listening to something like Planet Dead in a modern world context, iron bass lines, alluring synths, deadly chugging, and percussion that twists the tension like taffy, and all this before the first vocal. It made me think of those 90s creator albums, the way the band tried to retain the heaviness and the roots in thrash while experimenting with other genres and instruments. But PFF do a much better job. Yes, you can hear the progressive influences, you can hear the Godflesh, but the breakout riff in Planet Dead at the 2 minute mark is pure galloping thrash and it sounds glorious.
The album is full of surprises and hotspots. The muck-dragging doom riff of 9mm movie that backs into a crazed violin solo like an outtake from 2 Megatherion is one of them. Then there is the bizarre second half of long, silent voices with mosh-friendly downstrokes, kind of ballet dancing with piano flourishes, and eventually full-on orchestration. Of course, Taste of the Lie drags out the funhouse electronics, programmed drums colliding with riffs the size of bull rings, a track that has not dated one iota in 20 years, and it still sounds futuristic and challenging to this day.
Last but not least, leave it to this bunch to tackle a cherished Venom track for the album's finale, a crushing take on the non-LP Warhead, tackled in a way that sounds so retro and so futuristic all at the same time. It was great to give this one a fresh listen as it still sounds so potent. The lyrics are dark and menacing, the production top notch, and the experimental nature of the songs does not detract from their headbanging power. Looking at Eric's E-Force band set list, it looks like they are predominantly dominated by Voivod covers, but I submit that throwing in a little material from Project Failing Flesh debut would go a long way.
Okay, let's close it out with a little 9mm movie.
It's too late.
Okay, what's your scenery? It's finally up, Jim.
All right, I was excited to finally talk with Jim. Loved this EP for the Leviathan. Cannot wait for more. I'll probably have to get another Woad Witch tattoo. Who knows? But yeah, I was really looking forward to connecting after such a short period of time. He is one of the only bands that submitted to us. It was actually through threads that I started talking with him that actually made it on the show because if you haven't figured it out, we only do stuff we really like.
I'm going to say 2 words before you see this interview. Pink guitar. That's all I'm going to say. Mm. Take it away. Obvious question. Silence since 2018. Talk about the catalyst that kind of brought Leviathan back. I mean, was it like a slow thing, or was it a quick moment, or like what brought it back?
Do you know what? It was a quick moment. Um, um, it's a long story, but the previous members of the band who were still, they're very good friends of mine, but we have kind of like sort of drifted apart. There was some mental health issues. And one of the guys had a bunch of new music that was on his computer. And he just decided that he was done with everything to do with music and he deleted the lot.
Oh my
Um,
God.
and I'd kind of not really played for a bit at that point, even though like my job is I'm a music tutor, so I'm a guitar teacher. And I still a guitar teacher at that point, but my interest in music had just tapered off a little bit. And but that moment was like devastating. And I realized at that point that if I felt that strongly about it, that I should really sort of pick the guitar up for myself again and start playing properly. And that was the catalyst, that moment. And obviously it took a long time to kind of bring it back from the dead. But
Yeah, yeah.
in the middle of that, there was COVID.
Right.
COVID was I was sort of getting somewhere with it, and then COVID came along and it all got kind of shelved, and then after that it was a matter of finding somebody to do the vocals, and that was a long process. I was kind of relying on someone to do it who was really good,
Hmm.
uh, immensely talented, but he just kept letting me down. And in the end, Chris, who is on the EP, who I've known for since I was sort of 20 years old, he stepped in and finished it and did it all, and then finished it off. Um, so without him, it wouldn't have happened. But going back to the previous point, it was a single moment in time, and if that moment hadn't happened, I don't know. I don't know whether I would have done it or not.
Oh, we're glad you did.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
in
hold on, before we get
oh,
too into it, you got to explain the pink guitar. It looks like it's from like the second Vixen album or something. Like, is that like for your students, or is that, I mean, I wouldn't put that with the Leviathan. Yeah.
So yeah, this is I just love it. It's just great. I've always loved the whole 80s vibe. So
Yeah, yeah.
I have another Instagram profile which is 60 seconds of shred.
Right,
And,
right.
and that I'm kind of exploring all the Steve Vais and the Paul Gilberts and the Yngwie
Yeah.
Malmsteens. But there's two sides to my personality. There's the pink nonsense, and then
There it is. Yeah,
there
that I
is.
can see. Yeah.
So there you go. But I love this guitar for a number of reasons. One, because people kind of do find it quite shocking. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
I do get comments on YouTube videos that I play it in where people say things like, a pink guitar, you shouldn't use a pink guitar for metal,
Right.
or various knuckle dragging type kind of like gatekeeping.
God.
But
Uh,
I love it. I love the vibe. It's a great guitar, and I play it loads. So
I think as soon as I picked that up, I'd start playing just like Paradise. I wouldn't be able to not, like just
yeah,
like the
fair
guitar
enough.
is asking for it. So
Yeah.
Mm. Well, anyway, you were gonna ask a question.
So, in the past, you were involved in projects like Extreme OD and Nailed. Where were the key lessons, good or bad, that you carried forward into the Leviathan?
The Redux.
I think that my experience with Nailed was mostly a positive one, except that back then I wasn't all that confident as a songwriter, so I very much left it to the other members of the band to do that element. I actually had convinced myself that I wasn't capable of doing it. So in that sense, it's a negative because there were some real kind of like strong personalities there, and I just kind of just did my own thing, but didn't really kind of put any of my ideas across. But then the positive side of it is that we did play a hell of a lot, and we did a lot of rehearsing, and we did a lot of gigs as well. And I think I grew as a musician during that period. The Extreme OD, that actually wasn't me. That was the previous bass player, Ian. There's a load of stuff online where I'm not surprised that there's been a few little kind of like kind of continuity errors. The drummer on this the last EP was actually a guy called Simon Blakelock, who I have only met once, and I met him
Okay.
on the day that he recorded the drums. I talked to him a lot online, but I only met him once. We never rehearsed. We didn't do anything. He just like demoed the stuff at home, and then he just came into a studio and did it all in one session, and just did the lot.
Yeah.
And
What a great name.
yeah,
It's a great
Simon
name.
Blakelock.
I would believe he was in Diamond Head or something with that name. Like,
He's also from Yorkshire, so
right,
he's
right,
from
yeah.
that part of the world that's like
Yep.
Well, anyway, so he did the drums, and then the dude that I'm jamming with now is David Buchan. I don't know how you pronounce it actually. Don't know whether it's
Okay.
Buchan or Buchan, but he's going to do the next one basically. Sorry, I digress slightly.
No, no, it's okay. Yeah. It's funny. Yeah.
Um, so I love the name Leviathan. It carries such heavy symbolism. So are we talking like biblical sea monster with fire-breathing heads, or is it more like the abstract concept of chaos incarnate? Maybe both.
Um, it's it's a little of both things, and there is another element to it. That there's actually a book called Leviathan that was written by a guy called Thomas Hobbes. We're getting into some kind of like sort of socialist theory here. I
Okay.
did social sciences when I first went to university,
Okay.
and there's all sorts of connections with this particular piece of academic literature because it's not like a novel. It's a treatise about social constructs.
Okay.
And it ties in with a guy called Jeremy Bentham, who you will never have heard of because, again, he's a social theorist who was alive in the 18th century. And he came up with this concept of a thing called a panopticon. And a panopticon's like a prison that's got a central, it's like a circle with a central column, and you have one guard and the guard can see in 360 degrees what everybody's doing at all times. So this was his design for the perfect prison. And
Okay.
that kind of fed into some of the imagery from the first Leviathan album, where there was a song that was called Panopticon. And one of the other guys in the band wrote a song basically based on that concept of being constantly observed.
Okay.
So it kind of all ties together. But there is the biblical thing where the giant sea beast, because that's cool as fuck, right? It's amazing. But
Yeah.
it also ties into some of the lyrical themes that we use later on.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you think about it, we are always watched because there's one true crime show that's just called See No Evil that is all about crimes that were solved through different camera angles, and
Yeah.
everybody's got the doorbell cam.
Well, I think you have even more in the UK. There's cameras everywhere, right? I mean,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You ever thought you'd be sitting at work going, "Who is ringing my doorbell?" Oh, it's the mailman. It's pretty funny.
Interesting.
So has your interpretation of the Leviathan evolved since the band first formed, or does it mean something different to you now after time away and the resurrection of sorts?
I think in terms of the name, I guess it's kind of stayed the same. In terms of the direction, I guess the direction of the music has shifted a little bit, and it's kind of gone towards more the kind of black and death, um, in that little niche. Whereas before, it kind of had elements of kind of death metal and thrash, and there was a little black metal in there as well. And it was kind of a bit more technical, a bit more kind of, it kind of went off in the kind of tangent directions, I think it's a little bit more cohesive now than it was.
Yeah, I like the fact that you're black and death, but your songs aren't like 18 minutes long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not that there's anything wrong with
Yeah.
that. I mean,
No.
I was reviewing an album this week and there were 4 tracks, but it was an hour long.
Oh wow. Okay.
So I'm finally, I put in my headphones and I'm taking notes, and I thought, all right, last song. Oh my God, it's 18 minutes.
Yeah. We see less and less of that though. Like
Yeah.
it seems like we're back to like a 35, 45-minute runtime because
Yeah.
that you saw a lot of that like in the early 2000s when the CD was like was a big deal, and it was like we got to have 80 minutes of music here. Luckily,
Yeah.
we've kind of gotten away from that because it was a grind.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It had to be
maybe
for making it as much as listening to it.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, because it's even the production, because if the song's 18 minutes long, that's going to cost a lot more money for the producer to
Well,
produce.
Yeah.
because you've got to edit 18 minutes worth of audio.
Right.
So the costs are you're gonna kind of spiral there. I
Right.
do.
And then you'd have to, if you press that to vinyl, you'd have to do what, like three records
Yeah.
to so it would
I
sound okay, you know. It's crazy.
But then I wonder whether people have got like a less of an attention span
Oh
now
yeah.
than they had
Yeah.
because of social
Right.
media. So
Right.
maybe the kind of the world of the 4 minute, you can't go past 4 minutes
Yeah.
because no one's listened to the last two. You're gonna do that.
Yeah. The last 12-minute enslaved song. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask you about the cover art because I liked it immediately. I like the smeared reds and the blacks. It looks almost like blood on burned parchment.
Yeah.
Um, like an old wound or something. Like where did the idea for the artwork come from, and like how does it fit in?
I have to admit that the artwork came from I've forgotten his name now. He he's a Russian guy, and he has disappeared off of social media.
Oh wow.
So back in 2020, or maybe even a little bit earlier than that, I came across some of his stuff, and I just followed him. And every once in a while, he put some new stuff up, and it just came across that one, and it said it's for sale. It's 30 euros,
Oh wow.
which is like insanely cheap.
Wow.
And I was just like, well, I just love that. I'm just gonna buy it. So I bought the image. But I don't know, about 6 months, a year afterwards, he was sort of complaining that he was having problems in Russia with, I believe it was after they invaded the Ukraine, they switched off PayPal in Russia. So he was not able to take payments.
Oh
Um,
wow.
and then he just disappeared after that,
Oh,
and I haven't
so-
seen anything of him since. But he's
Wow.
obviously a really talented dude. He wasn't using AI because AI wasn't a thing back then.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
but unfortunately, I don't think he's active anymore, which is a real shame.
Yeah. It's interesting.
It's a very haunting tale. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you touched on working with Dave from Burial. I mean, I was watching some of the stuff on Instagram. He's absolute beast behind the kit. Do you think his style is influencing the songwriting that you're doing now, or is it just kind of he's adapting?
No, absolutely, he is. Yeah, the songs that I've kind of picked for the next EP are ones that I think suit his drumming style. And whenever you're I've got the exact opposite experience here than I did with the previous EP because I never met Simon. Simon was like we just
Right.
conversed online. He had an electric drum kit at home, so he'd demo a song and then he'd send me the recording, and I'd kind of listen to it and say, "Oh, can you tweak this bit? Can you change this bit? Can you maybe do this here?" And then at the end of it, I had a finished demo, and then he then recorded what he demoed. But with Dave, because I'm actually in a room with him and we're kind of talking about stuff and just jamming, the songs are kind of they were on my computer in one form that just had kind of like a drum machine as the backing, and over time they're kind of developing to become, I think, they sound a little bit more natural than the previous ones. Dave's he's a very fluid drummer. Um, he's very organic, and I think that the songwriting is starting to follow that path a little bit, which is really nice, and it shows like a kind of an evolution. Yeah, and he's just a great guy as well. He's just really nice to spend time with him because he's just lovely. So
Mm.
yeah,
Mm.
big up Dave.
Well, your guitar playing on this thing it's all over the place. I love
In
the
the best way.
yeah, I love this you have the shred solos and then the galloping riffs and stuff. Is there a certain piece of gear that you're like currently in love with that's on all over the album or
Not really.
okay.
So I actually, I mean, at work, because I own, me and my wife and our business partner, we own a music school. So at work, I've got kind of amplifiers and all sorts of
Right,
kit.
right.
Here, I have nothing. it's all on the computer. So
Oh
all of
wow.
the kind of the all of the stuff software based now. And I mean, it has got to the point where it's kind of indistinguishable from the real kit. In fact, the
Yeah.
producer that produced the last EP, Rob Hobson, another great name, he doesn't use any physical gear at
Hmm.
all. It's all plugins on the computer.
Plugins, yeah.
So
Yeah.
I guess I have a few favorite kind of amp simulators,
Yeah, yeah.
but in terms of like physical gear, it is just a guitar into an audio interface that's just like the one that's in front of you, and then from there into an amp simulator. And I've got a few that I love that are they are quite inspirational actually because you turn them on and when you've got a good one. And
Yeah, yeah.
you start playing, and it's like, oh God, this sounds amazing. Obviously, that's a new gear day is inspirational for all musicians, I would imagine.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if it's still online, but I remember sometime like around the 2010s, the producer Jack Endino, he had his website is fascinating. He was doing a pedal versus a plugin. And he was like
Uh-huh.
basically his point was that the plugins were almost as good and much easier to use. And he was just, I mean, the detail and the science that he put
Oh
into
yeah.
comparing, and there's all these charts and descriptions and it went on for, forever. But I just remember thinking, wow, that he's really taking the technology out for a test drive. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're probably a couple of years away from it being utterly indistinguishable. You
Yeah.
you just
Yeah.
you can't tell what's
Mhm.
real and what's like digitally kind of emulated. The interesting thing is that the singer Chris is a music producer in his own right in his own right, and he owns a recording studio in Manchester.
Yeah.
He's the opposite. So he is purely kind of yeah, I mean he uses the computer to record the stuff like everybody does, but he's
Right.
big into analog gear, so he's still got all of the big amps
Oh
and the
wow. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
all of the rack stuff, and so he's the opposite kind of producer to Rob.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to see that his way is becoming more and more of a niche. But in that, there is, as you know, like niches they're great for businesses. He will become well known for him being not a digital producer.
Yeah. Yeah.
A bit like with the long songs, like the bands that have got the long songs, that as that dies out more and more, the ones that have got the long songs, that becomes their niche, right? Like
Right.
Yes.
it's
Right.
against
Yeah.
the grain.
Yeah.
But yeah, so in long answer to a short question, I don't really have a piece of inspirational gear other than the plugins.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, guitar wise, is there like what are some names that are like kind of in your DNA as a guitar player?
There's so many. But I've already mentioned the kind of 80s shredders. Yngwie Malmsteen, Paul Gilbert, Steve Vai, Joe Satriani. But then
Yeah.
in the metal world, I mean, there's so many. If I could name a few, Chuck Schuldiner from Death.
Yeah.
I really, you mentioned Nile before, so I listened to a lot of Nile.
Yeah.
So I think the original guitarist Dallas Toller Wade, I used to love him. The kind of the Jeff Loomises of the world, from
Oh, yeah.
Nevermore. And plus, there's so many. Necrophagist. Do you remember
Oh
them?
wow, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So Mohammed Sukumes and Christian Muenzer, the guys from that band. But then, also the bands like Suffocation. I did in Nailed. We actually did a short tour with Suffocation back in the 2009, something like that. And watching them play was just like,
Yeah.
they were just so good.
Yeah. That's very cool. Yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah.
think we saw them not how long ago? Year and a half?
We saw Suffocation like about a year and a half
Yeah,
ago. Yeah, and the new singer he's great. Yeah,
lots of personality.
yeah, he really sounded
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
So I love A Wolf Amongst Horsemen. It hits like a siege. You got this blast beats, galloping riffs, apocalyptic lyrics. I love the 20,000 spikes piercing the sky. It feels so cinematic and brutal. Is there a larger narrative at work there? It kind of struck me like Vlad the Impaler.
Yeah, it is. So, yeah, it's Vlad the Impaler. So it's a bit of a, I guess it's a bit of a metal kind of like trope, isn't it? There's so many people that have used it as like
Yeah.
their imagery. But I was on holiday in the south of England a few years ago, and I just watched this documentary about him, and it was just so interesting. I mean, like, I know he was an unbelievably brutal tyrant, but
Yeah,
the
yeah.
story of his life is just absolutely compelling. And it just started just coming to me with I thought, right, I'm just gonna write. I know this has been done like 1,000 times before, but I'm just gonna
Yeah.
write some lyrics about it, and it just fitted that song so well. So yeah, it is. You are right. It is Vlad the Impaler.
Well, we always tease everything we like has heads on spikes because I think at the time we were into The Flash and then The Walking Dead. I was like, oh, look, more heads on spikes. Game of
Yeah,
Thrones, more heads on spikes. I'm like,
yeah,
apparently
absolutely.
we like heads on spikes.
Yeah. Yeah. That's not something that you tell everybody, but you gotta know your audience before you bust that one out.
Yeah, yeah, I know what you mean.
We do have a cat, Vladimir. He's a Russian blue, but
Well, there you go.
he's he's a bit of a character as well.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
he's one of those you have to ask permission to pet because sometimes it's
Oh,
okay,
okay.
and sometimes it's no.
Yeah.
I always ask permission first with it.
Yeah.
Did you? So also, um, it kind of raises the question for the wolf among the horsemen. Is it kind of like a wolf in sheep's clothing, or is it like something like a more feral than the horsemen themselves? So if you had to name a modern public day figure who embodies that kind of energy, who would you pick?
Oh my God, that's a question that I don't think I have an answer to. I don't. I genuinely. Wow. But heck. I don't know. I don't know. I can't think of anyone.
There's so
That is an
many.
amazing question though. But I
There's so
just
many kind of evil, well, look at P. Diddy. I mean, not that everybody thought he was the greatest guy in the world, but really 1,000 things of baby oil? The
yeah.
hell, dude?
Yeah. Well,
Even somebody like Bill Cosby. I mean, he was America's dad, and then he still did all those weird
Yeah.
things. So it's like they have this weird double dichotomy.
yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Ted Bundy.
Ted Bundy,
Ted
yeah.
Bundy.
Everybody thought he was the greatest guy ever. Heck, he was in jail still charming people. They're like,
Yeah.
oh, he's so great.
All right, I have to ask you about the Grove of the Witch, which I had to go look it up, and that's always a good thing, So, um, how did you land on that concept? I mean, were you consciously drawn on the ancient use of the woad die by the warriors, or was it more like a atmosphere sorcery kind of thing?
To be honest, the genesis of that song is the first Leviathan album. There's a
Okay.
song that's called "The Hammer of the Witches,"
Okay.
and I've just always loved the imagery of the concept of a witch.
Yeah.
And I love the idea of the kind of the powerful woman. And we kind of like wrote that song. Dan penned the lyrics to it, and I basically had another go at what he did the first time around,
Okay.
which is I wanted the idea to be that there was a woman accused of witchcraft, and in my head, the concept would be that witch is imprisoned, and then put on trial, and then condemned to death and taken to the stake to be burned. But then it actually turns out that she is a witch, and at the last minute she destroys her accusers.
Oh wow.
And I thought that was like an amazing concept the first time round. But then this time, I think I had another go, and I think I got it slightly. I did it slightly better, I think, than the first time. I mean, not to say that the lyrics weren't great the first time; they were absolutely
Right.
amazing.
Right.
But my idea was the same back then. But I don't know whether I've done a better job of telling that story. I've said to myself that if I ever write a book, it'll be that, and it will start with the same the lyric at the start. They came by torchlight, these grim-faced men of God. I thought that as a first line in a book could just be like that'd be
Yeah,
that'd draw you in, wouldn't it? Yeah, but
that does draw you in.
it
Totally.
was actually Chris that because Chris we had the lyrics and when Chris was starting to do the vocals, he was like, no, it needs to start with that line. So it was him that went like, that's the first thing that I want to sing.
Mm.
But there you go. And the woad thing, I mean, like that's just I think that the I've always been interested in history and British history is something that particularly interests me. And the woad, as you pointed out in your lovely review, was that a dye that the ancient Britons used to paint their faces blue. And one of the first mentions of the Britannic people is through a historian, I believe, called Tacitus, who took kind of Julius Caesar's accounts of the first time that they came to the British Isles. The first thing they saw of the Britons was these blue-faced demons
Oh wow.
facing them from across the landscape. And I just thought that again, that was like that's pretty cool.
Mhm.
What do you think she would look like? Would she be young, like a young sorceress, or should she be old and gnarled?
I don't know. I probably she'd probably look innocent. That's the only thing that I could say. I don't know whether they'd be old or young or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, I was so inspired. This is my Road Witch tattoo. It's still under plastic. It's
Oh yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
the three phases of the moon.
Mm.
Cool.
Yeah, it's still healing. It's getting to that really itchy stage.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
know
should have had Woad Witch written under it. That'd be awesome.
it.
So I really liked the of the gray, the kind of like little instrumental palette cleanser. It's so bard-like and
Palate
mandolin
cleanser.
sounding.
Yeah. Hardly.
It kind of reminded me of the guy in The Witcher when he comes out. And I like the way it kind of gradually turns unsettling. So what
Yeah,
kind of instrument did you use to make that mandolin sound?
it's just a guitar.
Wow.
It's just it's an acoustic guitar. It's this acoustic guitar.
Oh wow.
So,
Yeah.
but I mean, you're not the first person to say it sounds like a mandolin. And the only thing I can kind of like, the body of this guitar is smaller than it would be on a kind of full sized one, and I wonder whether it's got kind of like a high some higher pitched kind of tones in there, and that is reminiscent of something like a mandolin. But you're not the first person to say that actually.
Mm.
There was a review of the EP on a podcast a few weeks ago, and they said pretty much the same thing. So it must be something to do with that.
So also between the Lantern and the Dead of Light, I kind of love that kind of theme where you're in limbo between two worlds. Um, and of course, I can't possibly think about a lantern without getting into the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe
Okay.
somewhere in my head. I think but I would read it and I read it to my kids, so it's stuck in my DNA somewhere. Um, but did you have any like fantasy or novels or things in your childhood growing up that kind of led to kind of some of those themes?
The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Yeah.
So my dad read that and all of the subsequent books. In fact, that was probably my um first time that the kind of the idea of a fantasy world had been presented to me. And I used to absolutely love those books. And so it's funny that you mentioned them, but probably the journey that I'm on now, kind of possibly to a certain extent started back there, because it kind of unlocked my imagination, I guess, um, to the idea of fantasy as a concept. So I'm going to say The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
I was always surprised that they've never made like I don't know that I know of a film adaptation of The Magician's Nephew because I always thought that was a great book and you get this whole backstory on Jada. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe they'll work on it someday, but
I think maybe they ran out of steam, didn't they? Because they did make films and they were not very.
Well,
They
there's
were.
not enough reviews where they don't emphasize what a cunt Edmund was enough, in my opinion. I mean, they should they
Yeah,
should they should explore that a little more because that's when I talk to my brother about it, that's the first thing we think of is it's all his fault, the little bastard, you know? It's like,
yeah,
you know.
yeah. He wasn't. They needed a Joffrey, didn't they?
yeah.
That's what
Right.
they needed to do. They needed to make him despisable, you know,
Yeah, absolutely.
despicable.
Yeah.
And but they I think they perhaps I don't know. I just don't think anyone's ever got that right. It's never been.
Right. Right. All
Maybe
she
somebody
needed was
will.
chocolates. It just took
Yeah,
chocolates, really. I mean,
yeah, yeah.
oh no, they're Turkish
Turkish
delights.
delight, yes.
Turkish. Oh God, I stand
Right.
corrected. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So,
My mum used to get me a box of Turkish delights every Christmas.
were they
Uh,
worth the apocalypse
no,
of the universe? No.
no. Well, she used to get them because I've been
Uh,
like Turkish delights like something that's like
yeah.
and she used to buy them. I had to tell her to stop eventually because I was like, this is not good.
Yeah. Exactly. Right. That's funny.
So for the video for that one, is it mostly stock footage or did you get to
Oh
be
yeah,
the figure under the white thing?
It's
yeah.
mostly
Oh
stock.
God, yeah. Yeah, it's mostly stock footage, and there's bits of. I guess that song was about the film, the Thing. So that's my favorite horror movie of all time. So there's little clips from that film in there as well. I think out of the four tracks that are on the EP, there was actually five originally, and there was one that got cut altogether because I just didn't feel the vibe of it. We recorded the drums for it, but in the end, I just canned it because it was just not worth taking any further. And out of the remaining four, that one is, in my opinion, it's the one that's the kind of the weakest musically. I think there's a few moments in there where I wish I'd kind of perhaps develop the ideas a little bit more. So for this next EP, I think I'm going to be a little bit more careful that I don't feel like that about any of the. There's just a couple of riffs that are just a bit like there's one or two that I really like, but then there's a couple that there's just a bit.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I just don't really vibe with them. They're just kind of there.
Well, I mean, stock or not, the video turned out great. It does come across like a little mini horror movie. I thought it turned out
Yeah,
really good. Yeah.
yeah, it's cool, isn't it? But
Yeah,
like,
really cool.
I'd love to have the budget to be able to do something like properly
Yeah.
next time. It's just so expensive,
Oh, yeah.
So everything pretty much everything apart from the production, I've done myself.
Yeah.
The production, I always had this idea in my head that I was gonna spend some money on that because you're only as good as the sound that you put across, right? And I used a producer we've used before, and who's like Rob, who's absolutely fantastic. And that's where I was going to spend the money because I'm never going to make a living out of this, am I? I'm never going to get any money back. But it's an investment in enjoyment at the end of the
Yeah.
day. But
Yeah.
you've got to be a little bit careful because you could end up spending
I
$10,000,
know. No, I know.
and you're not going to get that money back. And
Right.
I've always got this thing in my head that I own a business, and I'm constantly thinking, well, if we spend money, are we going to get that money back? And unfortunately, that extends also to the kind of
Yeah.
the projects outside of that you think if we spend £5,000 and we're going to get it back, and the answer is no. so you've got to be
Yeah.
sensible, haven't you?
Yeah, I just got a Mike Campbell's book, Tom Petty's guitar player, and I'm hoping that he goes into what some of those videos cost back then. Because remember how
Oh yeah.
elaborate his videos
Oh
were.
jeez, man.
It was just
I
they made his career. I mean, but you can imagine how much money was spent. Wow.
they must again though, I do feel for the kind of the up and coming bands because there is a pressure, isn't there, that they've got to do that. And then, if you're either paying for that yourself, And then the problem is that you're potentially not going to make that money back. It's highly likely that you won't. Or there's a record company that's giving you an advance to pay for it, but then you're
Owing
going to end
them.
up paying it
Yeah.
back
Yeah.
in one way or another in the future. But it's so expensive music. Just
Yeah.
making music is such an expensive endeavor. If you want it to, if you haven't got the skills to make it sound amazing yourself, or
Right.
to look amazing, you've got to bring somebody else in, haven't you? And the cost of that can be astronomical.
And there's so many bands. It's that one thing about the labels was they kind of were a filter to a certain
Yeah,
degree. But now that it's just like the Wild West now, where everyone's got a Bandcamp page, everyone's got an Instagram page. That's what we try to do with the show is kind of try to be a filter. We kind of try to say, all right,
yeah,
we're gonna talk this week. We're gonna talk about these three albums that you should check out. Like try to rein it in a little. So
absolutely.
it's so much. So.
Have you ever thought about just doing a like weird in the woods, like with just the band performing out in the woods somewhere with some skulls and
Oh
maybe you
yeah.
could cast somebody as the plague doctor. Which one of you do
Oh,
you
oh
think would
yeah.
be a good plague
Oh yeah.
doctor?
Every day. Every day. We actually did so Chris, the vocalist, he has a band called Cairns. And Cairns are they're like a post black metal band. I'll send you a link. They are very different, but they're
Okay.
very worth checking out. And I did some shows with them last year, and we played a black metal festival in the north of England in Cumbria. And it's called the Darkness Over Cumbria Festival, and it is literally in the woods.
No, cool.
So
Wow.
you go to this hill, and the hill is completely enveloped in a wood.
Oh,
And
wow.
the guy that owns it is like I don't know whether he's used the wood for things over the years, but he's built roads that kind of go around the hill so he can access the wood higher up.
Oh,
But the thing is that because he's got these spaces where he's put like turning circles in for vehicles and stuff, it's perfect for camping. So
oh, wow.
he then created this kind of area, and there's like a kind of a structure that the band's playing, but it is enveloped in these woods, and
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
they even have a pool that they call the Moon Pool.
Oh.
And at midnight on each night of the festival, somebody gets baptized like a pagan baptism.
Oh,
And
awesome.
they all come
That's
out with
so
the
cool.
torches, and unfortunately, I wasn't there for that bit because I had to go. I was going on holiday, so I had to go. I played, and then we
Right.
went.
Oh, that's a shame.
But
Yeah.
it was an amazing little thing.
It sounds
Yeah, it's just
amazing. It really does.
fantastic.
Yeah. That's where you want to go see like Gorgoroth or something. That's
Yeah,
that's the environment. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, so we play a game on the show. The game is called Blaspheming Monikers. Okay. And here's how it works. I have five band names in front of me. One of them is not real. So we're gonna see if you can guess which one of these is not a real band. Okay.
Okay,
Okay. All right. One, Black Radar. Two, Black Christ. Three, Black Comedy. Four, Black Griffin. And five, Black Reflex.
hang on a minute. I was going to straight away say Black Reflex, but now I'm wondering whether that's like I don't know whether you're trying to
Here, let me read
like.
through them again. Black Radar, Black Christ, Black Comedy, Black Griffin, Black Reflex.
I'm gonna say Black Reflex is not real.
They are thrash from Italy. They have one album, but they are real.
I
The
knew you would.
Reflex. All right, so
So
that leaves Black Radar, Black Christ, Black Comedy, and Black Griffin.
Black Griffin is not real.
Very good. Yes. Very good. Uh,
Black comedy is a horrible.
Black Comedy is from Norway, the industrial metal. Black Christ is heavy metal from Finland, and Black Radar is heavy metal from Germany. So you did pretty
Great.
good. Pretty good. Got it in the second round. Yeah.
Now we were talking about like shticks, like we saw this one band, Castle Rat, and they actually have I think it's their bass player that dresses like the Plague Doctor, like for the whole set.
Yeah.
And then they have like a Dracula type figure, and their drummer wears like this crown of horns, and the lead singer like wears a chainmail bikini with half her boobs hanging out. And they actually have a woman who doesn't play an instrument in the band that just comes on stage and they do these really weird dramatic fight scenes, which
Like
is the worst wordplay I've
mock
ever
sword
seen.
fighting. Yeah.
But it
That's
was sold out. It was sold out.
yeah. People want an experience, don't they? And I think that sounds like an experience. I've got a question for you.
Okay.
What's the craziest band name that you've ever come across as a real band?
What was the one that Dan Liker said? Unregistered sex offender. He
We
said he
want
said that he said that is such a cool name. You don't even need a moniker. You don't even need a logo.
right.
Unregistered sex offender.
Wow. We once played with a band that was called Necrosadistic Goat Torture.
That's probably been in one of my blaspheming monikers in the past. I've probably put them out there.
Real
Yeah.
band.
Yeah,
Real
real
band.
band.
Or
That's
we
great.
did talk to from your neck of the woods, Lesbian Bed Death, which is another kind of like off the wall name, but they do really well.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, that was a great interview. Yeah. Yeah. They're a good band.
Lots of crazy ones. Like,
There was one other one. What was the one that we asked Black Braid? It was REO Rape
oh yeah,
Wagon.
that's a bad name.
Oh,
REO
right.
Rape Wagon.
That's real too. So yeah. You're not getting any FM airplay with that name. No.
No, definitely not.
Yeah, we talked to, Don from Nunslaughter, and he said sometimes in the marquee they made him change it to non-slaughter, or I was like, really?
Right.
Oh, wait a minute. No, but the funniest thing was Nunslaughter, someone came up to him and said um, they referred to the band as Nun's Laughter.
It's like, no.
That's what they saw. And I was like, oh my God, you're right. If you put a space, it is Nun's
Yeah.
Laughter. But I never
That's pretty funny.
I never saw that. Yeah. So anyway.
So I love that you shared kind of that lukewarm Danish review, which suggested the energy fades, which I strongly disagree with, by the way. But I admired you for posting that because some bands would only post the ones with praise. So, what kind of inspired you to share that too? I mean, or could it be like, maybe you hit a nerve, maybe the guy didn't have his coffee yet, you always feel good when a little bit of haters crawl out.
I just feel that it deserved to be shared. And the biggest thing that I thought about that was obviously, you read something like that and you're a bit
Yeah.
disappointed.
Right,
Can't not be. And I don't care how thick-skinned you might say you are. If
Yeah.
you've put a lot of time, effort, energy, and money into something that you think's pretty good, when somebody says something like that, you can't help but feel slightly offended.
Right.
And I did feel like that. But at the same time, when that magazine approached me, Metalized magazine, who are like the only metal magazine in Denmark, the guy just emailed me out of the blue and said, "We're going to review your EP. Would you like to spend a little bit of money on advertising?" And I was like, "Okay, it was like €80 or something like that. Why not?" The thing that I deeply respected was that despite the fact that I paid them some money for some advertising, they still said what they thought, and I
Yeah.
thought that was I thought that was great.
Yeah.
And I know to them that kind of money is like it's only a little bit, but they weren't in any way influenced by the fact that somebody had paid them for a service, and I think that is. I respect that. I think that's great. The guy
Yeah.
didn't like it, but you can't prove it. You can't impress everybody 100% of the time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
So I was thinking, like, if the Leviathan had an eddy, what do you think it would look like, and what would its name and backstory be?
oh God, can we make the thing on the face on the image that's behind you? Can we get that, but
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
like 50 foot tall,
Okay.
uh,
Yeah.
and with a face that's on fire? That'd be great. But I'm not sure that my budget
Yeah.
will
No, I know what you mean.
allow that.
Yeah.
I don't know
My
whether
first concert, my first concert was a Power Slave Maiden, And
Oh yeah.
it kind of ruined it for me because there's no following that up, right? I think the next show I
No,
went to was like Loverboy or something, and I was like,
it's just like
where's
yeah,
the
this is
show? Where's the giant monsters?
yeah. So my wife Natalie, she took me to see Iron Maiden in I think 2019 before COVID.
Uh-huh.
She is not into metal at all, and she bought the tickets thinking that I could go with someone else. But
Uh-huh. Right.
unfortunately, because she put her name as being the lead person, she couldn't put somebody else's name on the ticket.
Oh, okay.
So she
Right.
ended up having to come with me. And let me just say this, she appreciated the explosions.
Okay.
She appreciated the fire.
Okay. Right.
She didn't enjoy the rest, anything else.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So I was thinking, we talked with George Purves from Spider God, and he started out by doing a lot of covers, although I love his Sabrina Carpenter XOXO. If you had to the Leviathan up a pop song, what would you pick?
Um, I mean, I've there's been a couple in recent memory that might. There was one by Miley Cyrus
Okay.
a couple of years ago that I had taught at work to to
Okay.
some of my students. That one would have kind of translated quite well to metal. I can't remember the name of it, but the ultimate for me would be to do a black metal version of The Chain by Fleetwood Mac.
Oh wow.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So I've always had it in my mind that that would work.
Yeah.
But Lindsey Buckingham, the guitarist, he played so much stuff in so many weird tunings
Mhm.
that it's really awkward to play. So without like having a guitar that's tuned to the way that he tuned it,
Right.
it's
Right.
quite difficult to make it work. I have actually started it, but I didn't get very far.
That's a great idea though. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was excited to see that you were working on two new The Leviathan tracks at Noise Boy Studios. What's your experience like been with them?
It's great. Yeah, it's really cool. I think that some of the material now it's quite old to me because it's been on my computer for quite a few years. But there's definitely a an evolution. And I think I'm kind of I know I'm 40 now. I'm no spring chicken, but I am actually quite new to songwriting. So the Grove, this probably will surprise you. The Grove of the Woad Witch is actually the first song that I ever wrote all the way through.
Oh wow.
And I like I said when we were talking about Nailed, I went to university and I studied music at university and I did compose then as part of what I did, but I never really had any faith in myself to be able to do it really well or better than people that were my peers around me. And so that's the first song that I ever wrote all the way through. And I think there's a kind of a development. I think the ideas now are a little bit more professional. There's a little bit more. I think it sounds a little bit more natural. It's a more expressive. There's a little bit more nuance in there, and so yeah, it's been really cool to start to just see those songs kind of develop. One of them is at the point where it's fully demoed, vocals, everything. It just needs some bass on it, and then the other two are still in the kind of developmental stages. And then there is a track that's fully acoustic again, but
Oh,
the
wow.
difference with this one is that it's going to have vocals on it. That one is, to be honest with you, I've recorded it, but I've forgotten how it went. So I'll have to relearn it.
As a guitar teacher, what is your most requested? Oh, teach me this song from your students.
Do you know, a lot of the students I have, they don't really tell me. So I do the older students, they seem to have a clearer idea of what their musical identity is, and but the influences are unbelievably varied. So I have a lot of students that are into rock and metal. I've got
Hmm.
quite a few students that are into death and black metal as well, which is awesome. Um, but they can be quite coy, slightly embarrassed about asking me to teach them something. And it honestly, I have to ask again and again and again. Listen, can I make a list of things on my phone that you want to
Right, right.
listen? And you know, once you've broken down the initial barriers, you will get some form of answer. My adult students, again, I have everybody that's like people that are into kind of shred, and then I've got like people that are into kind of Chuck Berry, you know, kind of
Okay. Right.
50s, 60s kind of. I had a crazy Friday night a few months ago where there was a guy that came and I taught him a song called Apache by the Shadows.
Okay.
And
The 60s, the 60s
that's
yeah.
right, that's right. So, you know, the very 60s kind of
Yeah,
sounding.
yeah.
And then the following lesson, I was doing a Meshuggah song, a Meshuggah
Oh,
song.
wow. That's a jump. Yeah.
New Millennium Cyanide Christ, I think it was.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
So
Yeah.
I went from that
Yeah.
to that within 40.
That's pretty much that all of rock and roll falls in there somewhere.
So people don't. I mean, like I don't really get the obvious, you know, like, oh, teach me Smoke on the Water, or
Right.
teach me Smells Like Teen Spirit. That kind of doesn't really happen. People are a little bit more, they're a little bit older, a little bit more savvy, and then therefore their tastes have gone beyond that kind of really obvious kind of guitar stuff, and into something else. So on my phone, I've got like lists and lists and lists of incredibly disparate pieces of music, everything from kind of like thrash metal to death metal to black metal to Miley Cyrus to Taylor Swift.
See, I thought you were going to say that they want you to play this this video game music. You know, can you figure out? Do you have that sometimes?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Yeah. That's still so. Sometimes when people when they've started the music lessons, they don't necessarily know what it is that they want to do. So one of the things that it's normally kind of teenage lads, teenage boys that do this. They'll say, "I'd like to learn something from," and then they'll give me the name of the game.
Video game. Yeah.
Kind of go away, and sometimes it's really got a really cool kind of melody or something. Sometimes it's impossible to be able to play it. Anyway, there we go.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you have new music coming. Have you thought about maybe doing a tour or a festival or some kind of live ritual at some point?
I think possibly, possibly try to do our gig at some point. And we'll just see. I think everybody that's involved at the minute, Dave, Chris, and Darren, who's the bass player. I think Darren, the slightly inconvenient thing is Darren used to live in Manchester, which is about 15 miles from where I live, but he has moved back home to Northern Ireland. So he now lives in Belfast, which is a little bit more kind of complicated, because he has to either take the ferry, or he has to fly over, and it's only a short journey. And it's like 30 minutes by plane, but it's still like a little inconvenient. So we'll have to see how we get on.
Yep.
Yeah, so hopefully maybe we'll get you over to Baltimore at some point.
You never say never.
The sounds of decay!
Okay, Sounds of Decay 1.
This is the Rivers of Nihil, self-titled. The term Nihil refers to the philosophical concept that life has no inherent meaning or value. So one might assume that a river of this particular belief system would feel like a seminar on Nietzsche. It is in fact not. Rivers of Nihil is the name of this Reading, PA quartet's hyper-intellectual, hyper-dynamic brand of technical death metal, and now is also the name of their self-titled 5th full-length album and the name of the closing track of the 10 on offer here.
Reading, not reading, dipshit.
That aforementioned closer is the shortest, clocking in at just over 3 minutes, while the rest dwell in the proggier 4 to 6 minute range.
A self-titled release this deep into a band's catalog often signals a new direction. In this case, it's more of an internal recalibration, a fine-tuning of the many-layered sonic taco dip they've been creating for years. Bassist Adam Biggs now takes over on brutal snarls, while new addition Andy Thomas brings the alt-rock chorus clean vocals. Jared Klein became the triple threat, drums, rasp, and harmony vocals. While Nile might suggest a cosmic bummer, guitarist Brody Utley has clarified they're not here to ruin your vibe. The name is less about preaching philosophical despair and more about capturing a feeling, the weight of time, the frayed edges of modern living, and yeah, maybe the urge to scream into the abyss, but artistically. Dig deeper, and the name fits their sound perfectly. Complex, layered, occasionally chaotic, but always cerebral. This is music that studies pitch and light and somehow finds room for saxophone solos without ever slipping into novelty. It's that sonic sweet spot that makes you ask, what if I grew ferns for a living?
Suborbital blues will snare you right away, packing more hooks than a Cenobite convention.
That's a good one.
And yes, suborbital as in we reach space but not quite orbit, Katy Perry style. The kind of blues that comes from pointless, high-cost joyrides. The soft coos at the intro sound phantom and mournful. These will return later in the track like a memory. Jared Klein's drums enter with hard smack toms that feel like warning shots. The riffs rumble low, like a spaceship growling through engine warm-up. And Biggs's bass? It throbs like a migraine in your brainstem, but somehow he makes it hurt so good.
That's so good.
Andy Thomas's clean vocals layer with Klein's into a bright baritone alt-rock choir. Can you see it? Believe that. Our dreams will orbit the earth forever. But when big snarls enter, it's like he's emoting through a mouthful of venom and fangs. The blast beats fire off in intermittent windshield wiper mode. Each layer takes a turn, then sometimes collide all at once in a sonic mosh pit. One of the most striking moments hits when Brody Utley's synthesizer locks with every syllable of Thomas sings. It's unexpectedly theatrical, like a Broadway production. Thomas follows with a solo that's so chock full of notes, gradually losing its grip on sanity till it ends in a ragged scream. The outro leaves you with squelchy, pulsing blips, like your ship's failing interface, and that awful feeling when your screen just flashes. Fatal error.
Despair Church opens like a knocked loose style grind, repeating like an industrial mixer, emitting rhythmic, churning waves. Utley lets his synth notes flutter like laundry on a line, eerily beautiful and just out of reach. Then Klein's drums drop into a relentless roll, repeating, rumbling beneath Biggs's snarl that bares his teeth before blasting off into ludicrous speed stratospheres. When the layered clean vocals arrive, it's like a window just cracked open in a stagnant room, fresh air and tension mixing, like two voices having an argument. The clean, peel away a miracle every day. Will everything feel the same? Growled response, the stars have fallen. Off-tune descending riffs pile up like dread on a cracker, until a wiry guitar solo sneaks in from the shadows. Then, suddenly, everything halts. For the final minute, a saxophone sings full of longing, steeped in grief, while piano plinks behind it like it's opening in the same vein. By contrast, Dustman kicks off in a panic, with stuttering drums that feel like they're hunting for the right synapse until they finally connect and fire off, joined by ghostly, disembodied synth notes. The guitars are low, sniffing and snarling like junkyard dogs, matched by Big's venom-drenched growls.
When the clean vocals call out Dustman, it's got all the pomp and ridiculous majesty of a superhero theme music. And if there was a Dustman superhero, he'd definitely have a Dyson-level attachments and a tragic backstory involving lint. Long moaning synth lines add a fourth voice to the mix, hovering like a warning beacon. A breakdown hits with classic metalcore stomp, vile, spit-laced vocals and drums that lurch and roll like a mining cart with no brakes, slowing only for hills and carnage. Let's play a clip. This is Despair Church. The logical end might just be the album's crown jewel. It opens with retro synth lines straight out of Stranger Things, quickly joined by jazzy tap drums and clever fills. This time, Klein chooses the dark side, layering in a vengeful whisper behind Biggs's throat-bleeding growl, while Thomas's clean vocals keep showing up, only to be bullied out of the spotlight. Blast beats explode like a cowboy-laden, bucking bronco, barely holding together under a gnarly descending guitar line that grabs you by the hair and just keeps yanking. Then suddenly, you're released.
Enter the saxophone, slinking in like a runway model in velvet, flaunting every melodic curve, mirrored note for note by a guitar that absolutely refuses to be upstaged. The blast beats return in full force as the three vocal styles collide in a full-blown turmoil. And then the clean vocals take flight, soaring in like a pelican riding the ocean breeze, bringing the unexpected grace to the chaos. By the track's end, Klein's drums sound like an air popper gone rogue, overflowing in a final burst of cathartic noise. Rivers of Nihil have always trafficked in controlled chaos, but this self-titled record feels like both a reinvention and a reintroduction. With lineup shifts, vocal shape-shifting, and genre-stretching arrangements, this album doesn't follow a straight arc. It spirals, sneers, lurches, and occasionally glows. This isn't your crack open a beer and grill some burgers kind of band. Rivers of Nihil is the soundtrack for staring out a rain-streaked window and thinking about how you feel invisible at work. Next time your coworker botches a spreadsheet and blames you, just remember, 100 years from now, their goof-ups will be dust. And who said nihilism doesn't come with perks? Let's close it out with a clip. This is The Logical End. Okay, Sounds of Decay 2 is the new EP from Chepang, Jirippa. I know I'm saying this stuff wrong, people, so give me a break. Utterly unbound and obliterating all boundaries and facets of extreme music, borders, and nationalism since 2016. Or at least that's how the five-piece grindcore band Chepang described themselves on their Bandcamp page. Hailing from New York City by way of Nepal, Chepang just played MDF last month, and their debut EP, Japa, just dropped around the same time, on Relapse. It's a modern grindcore classic with most tracks around 1 to 2 minutes, complete with Nepalese spoken word samples, the occasional pop song interlude, and lots of blink and you'll miss it riffs and changes. 2 drummers, 2 vocalists, and a guitar player simply called Nails. How could you resist not looking into this moniker a little further? I mean, honestly, this is the kind of band that you would get their shirt at Hout Topic, I think.
This thing is heavy as fuck. Galachad is one of the longer cuts on the album, offering 3.5 minutes of that alternate aggressive drum rolls, indecipherable screams, and subsonic gurgles. But when the band leans into the slower riff, the sound is uber metallic and groovy as all get out. There are touches of grindcore zaniness here and there. Track 7 translates to "search for spaghetti," and some political protest lyrics, and some mind-numbing repetition in some of the vocals. Let's play a clip. This is Gacktashad.
Guitarist Nails, okay, his real name is Guitarist Mokhtan. That's probably why he goes with Nails. He proves to be quite the master of riffs, squeezing in lots of crunchy mid-tempo rhythms between the crazed rolls and blasts. Drivya Shotki may be a good starting point for the uninitiated, kicking off with a tidal wave of aggro drum rolls before setting into a deadly pogo-friendly riff peppered with wild squalls from Nails, a riff that slows down even more at the track's midpoint to marvelous effect as the guitarist flings out harmonics and miscellaneous noise like he's dispensing change.
It's extremely short, with an intro track, an outro track, and a spoken word segment. This thing will be over by the time you get out into the merge ramp. But the riffs and avant elements are strong enough to bring me back again and again. We were not able to see them at Maryland Death Fest, but we'll try to check them out at the Auto Bar in late July to see how they dispense the energy in a live setting.
So, yeah, go ahead over to Relapse's page and check out the multiple splattered vinyl versions of this thing. And while you're there, go ahead and grab a Pig Destroyer hoodie because you know you want one. Whenever I wear mine to Whole Foods, the cashiers give me the side eye, and I'm like, hey, it's not my fault you're out of cruelty-free pistachios, people. Anyway, this is Trivia Chatki. Okay, Sounds of Decay 3 is the new album from Nightbearer, Defiance. Now, Stace has turned me on to so many cool books and movies since we got together, and one of my favorites was the TV series His Dark Materials that premiered on HBO several years ago. It's based on the books of English writer Philip Pullman. These stories have it all: wild jumps between worlds, spirit animals, and even armored battle bears. Well, apparently, Stace isn't the only fan of these books, as we've recently encountered a quality death metal moniker also enamored with the work of Pullman. Nightbearer are the sort of thinking man's melodic death metal, 5-piece from central Germany. Defiance is their third full-length since forming back in 2017, and the songs all explore the battle that is raging between the forces of archaic superstition and science. The album also marks their third, produced by guitarist Dominic Helmuth.
The riffing of Nightbearer may be rooted in old-school death metal, but the band is certainly not afraid to drizzle it with chiming guitar fills and even a piano segment or two for good measure. Vocalist Michael Torka delivers both guttural growls and witchy screams with charisma. It's some of the most majestic death metal I've heard in some time. The twin guitars give these songs almost a pompy vibe. Hellsmith, along with guitarist Tristan Schubert, shows a flair for dialing up all sorts of mood-changing guitar fills and harmonies. The oscillations around the midpoint of Dying Knows No Bounds are an example of their breath of fresh air layering approach to melodies.
All over the record, drummer Manuel Luke demonstrates he can storm as well as groove. For example, Dying Knows No Bounds nails us with vicious blast beats right out of the gate, frosted with gorgeous twin harmonies from Schubert and Helmuth, who continue to tinker with climates of cold and dread as the song alternates a thrashy mid-pace with brutal blasts of aggression.
Let's play a clip. This is Dying Knows No Bounds. The 9+ minute epic Ascension seems the crown jewel of the record. Mellow synths are met with a brooding riff that seems to sort of trudge through icicle droplet clean guitar into an all-out storm of blast beats, frenzied screams, and sinister gurgles from Torka. The push-pull between Floydish clean guitar segs and eruptions of riffs and percussive thunder are powerful enough to throw your alethiometer out of whack, and the guitar solo is stunning and bold.
Well, there you have it. Eloquent, powerful death metal, bolstered by stunning musicianship and one hell of a concept. The album literally dropped yesterday, so get over to Testimony Records Bandcamp page and grab this one, along with some other Snaggletooth-approved titles from Leper Colony and Anthropomorphia. Plus, be sure to check out his Dark Material series if snow leopard demons and exotic balloon rides are your sort of thing. This song is called His Dark Materials. must say, I usually run Hout and Cold on Grindcore, but that album is really good. Yeah,
Yeah, we're July's gonna be a auto bar fest for us,
it
it
is.
seems. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I like that the bands are migrating from Soundstage to Autobar because I like the Autobar a lot.
this has been the Snaggletooth Decay Extreme Music Podcast. Special thanks to Jim from the Leviathan for appearing on the show. Snaggletooth theme by Gustav Jord of The Fleshed. Sounds of Decay theme by Steve Rathbone of Lair of the Minotaur. Sounds of Decay bands include Chepang, Rivers of Nihil, and Nightbearer. All content 2025, the Snaggletooth Decay Extreme Music Podcast.
Stace says that when I wear my cool new leather jacket, I look out.
He's so hot.
This is the Snaggletooth Extreme Metal Podcast.